The split screen. Splitting the screen is a technique in many forms of media that allows visual or visuals to be presented in a way that is connected but disconnected at the same time. Each part of the screen, varying from as few as 2 splits to as many as 16, is meant to represent a different visual. Where things get interesting for this divide of the screens are how it is handled and used in video games. Its history goes as far back as the arcades and arguably the Atari 2600, a system with early signs of the split screen, with the first iterations being from Key Games. One of their games, Steeplechase in 1975, shows an early glimpse of what could possibly be the very first split screen in an Atari version. The horse racers are divided in 4 quadrants horizontally as they race along the track. However, it is pretty debatable whether or not this could actually be split screen due to the nature of actual steeplechasing. The first true contender of the split screen is their next game, Drag Race. Drag Race is a game that is exactly how it sounds. 2 cars driving to the right in a horizontal direction divided by the 2 rectangles that contain them. And while there isn't much to look at with Atari's graphics by today's standards, it paved the way for how 2 people could share the same screen separate from one another. So how can video game companies with more advanced hardware surpass or even innovate with this? Home console developers wanted to find a new way to allow more people to play. Enter the Nintendo 64. As a pioneer of video games since the 1980s, Nintendo was always a company of innovation. In this case, the Nintendo 64 introduced 4 controller ports, allowing for up to 4 players at once, a first for a console at this time. This didn't happen immediately, as some games released originally only had 2-player or only single-player based premises. This would all change with the release of Mario Kart 64 in 1996. For the first time, at least as it seems on a home console, 4-player split screen was finally a reality. All the characters were able to drive with individual screens portraying their movement. This is a huge step above the Super Nintendo's iteration of the first Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart, which only supported 2 players. Hardware was finally allowing for more people to claim property of their side of the screen. The Nintendo 64 continued to pioneer this playstyle with games like GoldenEye 007, Star Fox 64, and many others. Other consoles, such as the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, introduced a multi-tap that allowed for extra players. Sega's Dreamcast was the next console to implement 4 controller ports with games like Quake 3 Arena and Toy Commander. With the implementation of internet on the horizon across the world, many developers felt the split screen wasn't as practical as it was before. After all, not everyone could meet up for a game all the time. However, when you could meet up for a game, the definition of splitting the screen became a little more literal with the introduction of a LAN party. LAN, or Local Access Network, allowed computers and consoles to be hardwired to their internet service or each other. Developers took advantage of this long before with PCs, with first-person shooter games like Doom, which didn't have split screen at all originally. Everyone had their own screen, literally, and had no impact on performance whatsoever. Microsoft's Xbox was arguably the first game console to follow suit with games like Halo. It was one step closer to what online gaming could be, which was introduced by the time Halo's sequel arrived at the scene. By this time, developers considered splitting the cord entirely. Many developers considered it an afterthought when online was an option. For instance, Halo 5 Guardians, a later installment of the franchise, received backlash for being the first mainline title to not have split screen entirely. Companies didn't feel it was necessary. If they were doing it, why should anyone, especially with online as an option? If this is what people were asking, then why did split screen come back? Halo Infinite, the newest entry in the franchise, made it clear that split screen was finally back after the backlash from Halo 5. But why were developers adding the split screen and the couch co-op mechanic again? Is it to cater to nostalgia? Convenience? Is there truly a demand for this unique way to play? The answer? Yes. Video games were always meant to be shared, whether to friends, family, or complete strangers. Online has made this process easier, but it just isn't the same. There isn't an experience like split-screen multiplayer, and there never will be.